yoga culture. It feels... So I think it's National Yoga Month, actually.
Is it?
I think it was September. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I saw it somewhere. But anyway, it's a good time to talk about yoga and yoga culture. And why I get pretty annoyed with it to the point where I'm not really even following yoga culture much at all. The irony is I am certified. I'm a certified yoga instructor. But I think just where I've seen the evolution of like yoga culture and skinny, women, white women doing it, it's just really starting to turn me off. So that's my complaint. One of my many complaints about yoga culture.
Okay, so what brought you to yoga culture in the first place? Because that's a pretty big deal to be certified in something, right? Like, you're a certified yoga teacher. That requires like blood, sweat, you know what I mean? Like effort.
Yeah. A lot of people, like, this is kind of the script for a lot of people. Like, I tried yoga one day and it just changed my life. I was on the brink of fill in the blank. And after doing yoga for 5 years, I just feel like my life has changed, which is totally true. I will say that going through teacher training was life-changing, but for me, it was less about the physical aspect as much as it was about the philosophy, which I don't think the current yoga culture focuses on enough. It's definitely doing a better job now teaching about like the idea of non-harming and being one with like your breath and everything around you, and just like the philosophy, the teachings behind the actual physical practice. I feel like that is what attracted me, and I wanted a life change more so in lifestyle rather than being able to do a handstand, And I know you and I have talked about it before, and you actually have never done yoga, and I think there was like a reason behind it that I think fits really well into what we're talking about.
Yeah, so there's a few reasons why I haven't done yoga. One, listen, I'm all about being mindful, and I think that that's what you were kind of explaining earlier, is you wanted a more mindful way of life. Like, you wanted, just something more. It was more spiritual, it was more mind, and I'm all for it. The way that I perceive yoga, just in the way that it's been displayed, and I don't know who's responsible for this. I guess it's just the culture of things, but it's not presented in a way that's welcoming to me. I don't think it's welcoming at all.
Right.
Every time I see...
So explain.
I always see, like... I used to manage a gym for many, many years. So I'll just tell you what I used to see. I used to see only one type of person go in there. And if I'm to describe this person to you, it's a skinny white person, sometimes with blonde hair, sometimes with brown hair. That's it. With their Lululemon, whatever, mat, and Lululemon clothes, and whatever else. And even walking into Lululemon when they first came, or when they first became like mainstream and came to the mall, like, I walked in and I'm like, okay, like, I don't belong here. It's not, I don't find it to be welcoming at all. I think it's catered to one body type, one type of person.
Yeah. And
I think they do a really good job at spelling out that person is not supposed to be me.
Like...
Physically...
Not you in what
physically.
way?
I think physically that's what they're saying. Whether it's my body shape or my skin color or whatever the case may be, I just don't think that it's meant for me. And this is... I don't mean to name drop Lulu. That's just how I felt when they first came out. I was on their site the other day, actually, and I noticed that there's more diversity. I don't know if it's always been like that because I don't shop there. diversity, not just in skin color, but in body type. So,
Ooh, Lulu.
Yeah,
because they didn't for
a long time, right?
Their
CEO a few years ago, several years ago actually, I think it was their CEO, someone high up in their company went on, was saying, because there were some complaints about the chafing, right, of the pants in between the thighs.
That's hilarious.
And whoever this person was of Lululemon went on to say that it wasn't, in fact, for fat people. That's what they said. It's not for fat people or something like that. Actually, I'm going to pull up that quote because I want to know. But, they received some backlash for that because they're saying, essentially, if your thighs touch, this brand's not for you. And went on to say that whoever's thighs touch are fat, something like that. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, to answer your question, I haven't tried yoga because because it's not welcoming. It doesn't present as a welcoming environment, which I think is hypocritical to the message that it's trying to portray.
Right. And just to play devil's advocate, it's the chicken and egg question. Is it only catering to skinny white women because skinny white women are the only ones doing it publicly? Or is it only catering to skinny white women because they only want skinny white women to do it? Because let's remember, this didn't originate in Europe,
Yeah.
This came from India. So why... I'm, answering the question in my head. But, so, why don't we see more brown people doing it? Or more...
It's...
spiritual people emphasizing the spiritual aspect.
It kind of goes with a lot of...
we are a little bit more now.
It kind of goes with a lot of things that happen that become trendy in today's world. I make the joke because Filipino cuisine became popular, in Toronto a few years ago. And all these Filipino restaurants started popping up. And, I told a story in a previous episode about, going to one of the restaurants and having this white guy try to explain to me what Filipino food was. And it's just, I think it's just one of those things, unfortunately, where... it's trendy, and it's trendy because white people said it was trendy. Right. And I'm not trying to be harsh. This is just it. There's a reason why it's an Indian thing, but you're seeing white people do it because they said it was trendy, and they're taking the pieces that, mean something to them, or the pieces that they feel like they can communicate to others, and they kind of made it an American thing or a North American thing. They made it white, And I say the same thing, it's funny that you say this because I was just watching a show last night with Justin, and it's it's a show that I used to love watching until I realized what was happening, because it's a food show, and I'm like, why are all these white people cooking Mexican food? What am I watching right now? Where's the Mexicans? Because I'm like, why are all the chefs that are being interviewed for this white? What the hell is going on here? You're going to talk to me about traditional Mexican food, but a white guy's cooking it. That doesn't make sense to me.
And I get it, and I agree, and I think we've touched upon this before, but what if that person spent 20 years in Mexico learning the cuisine versus a Mexican who has no idea anything about the culture of the cuisine? Who then is more authentic in Mexican cuisine?
I think that I understand what you're saying, because that was the argument that we made last time, but I think that my frustration lies in the fact that it's way too common for us to ask that question at this point. I think that if it was happening sometimes, it's not like it's an anomaly. It happens a lot. A lot of the people that own these Mexican restaurants are Caucasian people who studied Mexican cuisine for however many years. Where are the Mexican, Argentinian, Spanish chefs? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm missing something, but I understand that point, but I just think that it's happening too frequently for me to be like, oh yeah, it's cool that this white guy's bringing this over here. No, Mexican food is one of the most common foods.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think I think that touches on something much deeper, and that is the opportunities that are afforded to a white person versus an immigrant.
There we go.
Because I'm sure that immigrant would love to start a successful business of their own cuisine, but they don't have the opportunity. And I think that's the same thing with yoga culture. I think it is appropriated by the white culture.
Yes.
Because... and this may seem a little bit harsh, but I have heard someone say it, and I was like, I wonder if there's truth in that. Because at least for Americans, people have said white people lack culture. Yeah. And so they go and learn about different cultures, and they like it, and then they appropriate it, and it becomes something trendy because they are the majority. And so yoga, which was just an everyday thing, more for spiritual alignment or just peaceful days, turned into a physical exercise practice where you have like power yoga, chair yoga, goat yoga, and it just becomes like this thing that has strayed so far from the original roots of it. That's kind of what I have an issue with. It's become too much of a trend. And like along with like just physically doing yoga, like essential oils, the crystals, the sound bowls, like I'm sorry, I need to call this out. White girls, too much of this. Like I get it if it speaks to you, but I've never ever picked up a crystal, and I know I'm pissing some people off, but I've never picked up a crystal and was like, this shit speaks to me. Like, I am just feeling it. A crystal has never done it for me. No object has ever done it for me. And I feel like, is it really speaking to you, or are you just feeding into that object culture of, like, needing to look the part? It really bugs me. Rant over.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like those things, I feel like there's truth in something, but I think it's just another example of what you were explaining of a cultural appropriation. Like, I'm sure there's a proper practice that is supposed to follow you, or that is supposed to be with the crystal. Like, you know, I think there's a proper process and proper practice for that, but it's being lost in this culture of like, oh, let me put a cute crystal in a pen, put it in a fancy box and sell it for $15 at Indigo, or let me put it in this water bottle and, you know, sell crystal infused water, or whatever the case may be. Like, I think it's just it's just a classic example of that cultural appropriation. Like, there's not really another way to say it. Like, I think that you hit the nail on the head by saying, like, you know, maybe there's a lack of culture there, and then they go and they seek it, they find it, they take the parts that they like, leave the parts that they don't, and then they bring it over. And like, listen, there are tons of times where, or there are great things that come from people who do it the right way, you know, like without showcasing light or shedding light on areas where, or sorry, on certain cultures that probably wouldn't be able to come through because of what you're saying about the, you know, the privilege and opportunities that come with being white. Like, there are people would not know otherwise of these cuisines, maybe, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, I think there's more harm done than help a lot of the time, especially with the age of technology being what it is right now. It's just, I agree with you. It's a lot. I want to go back to what I was saying about Lululemon's CEO. It was, in fact, their CEO. He's no longer the CEO. And what he said was, they don't work for certain women's bodies because even our small sizes would fit an extra large. It's more about the rubbing through the thighs and how much you're using it. So he said that in 2013, and he didn't apologize till 2015. At the time that he said that, Lululemon was worth twice as much as Under Armour. And a few years later, Under Armour is worth 3 times as much as Lululemon. Even though Lululemon has a better business model. So, just saying, it's not meant. He said it. He spoke on behalf of the company when he said that. And they've been, ever since then, I feel, working on reversing that damage.
Yeah, it's funny because I just remembered my sister and I were just talking about this recently when we went into Lulu and was like, what happened to them? When they first started, I'm talking like style, not really like fit or media coverage, but their style has changed. And I wonder if it's because of like the backlash, but yeah, I want to say within the last like 5-ish years, they're just stylistically not as up there as like, I don't know, Gymshark. But Gymshark is like athletic wear altogether. I feel like Lulu was very yoga focused.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what you say as a leader anywhere really influences your brand and who like receives it. So
Yeah.
definitely strike against Lulu.
No way. I mean, yeah, to go back to what you're saying though, like I think a lot of people, you hit it at the beginning, like a lot of people look for yoga culture, seek out yoga culture because of, the promise of mindfulness and, there's like this holistic vibe that comes with it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's actually a special, what's the guy's name? Oh my God. Is it Bikram? Bikram. You know what I'm talking about?
Bikram. Bikram
yeah,
yoga.
so there's a special about that guy.
That was huge.
I don't know if that's related. I do want to watch it though. But I think in that movie they talk about a little bit of what we're talking about. I think it's mainly about him and like his egomaniacal tendencies, but I think that there is some mention about why it became such a big deal because he was savvy enough to seek out the people he knew would spread the culture, which would be white people,
right.
White women specifically, between a certain age group that would, see that and love it.
Yeah. And I know that, like, I know this is something the yoga community is aware of, and they are making efforts to kind of make it more accessible for more people. There's, like, one more popular, bigger African-American, like, influencer in the yoga community, and she's there basically to break all preconceived notions of what yoga is supposed to look like. And that's great because she's spearheading that, right? Like, she's now letting other people know there is no look for yoga. And I think that's that stuff like that is going to get me more back into learning more about yoga, because right now what's out there, what's accessible, I feel the same way. I don't feel like it's accessible to me, like I don't want to walk into a class and see people practicing their handstands and then me like barely able to touch my toes or something like that. And I know that's what a lot of newbies think, like I'm not flexible enough, and there's this girl next to me doing a back bend, I'm not even going to go to a class. So I think the biggest takeaway I want to leave with the audience in regards to this topic is, I know a lot of people feel like it's not catered to them or isn't accessible, but there are tons of yoga studios out there. There's so much good in it. You just have to go look for the right studio that's going to give you what you want, because a lot of people want yoga for different reasons. Some people want to get fit, some people want the spiritual aspect, and luckily enough there's enough studios in the area or the state or in the US to give you what you want. You just have to dig a little bit deeper.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
I do think that's like I have seen in Toronto at least a couple of people like that that are trying to change the look, I guess, of yoga, the aesthetic of yoga, which is really important. So yeah, you're right. Like I think that it's worth a shot. I think that if you can find someone that works for you. I'm not there anymore. I have found other ways to practice mindfulness and, live holistically. Oh, that's our timer. And yeah, so
Yeah.
Irene, if you don't mind leaving the link to that person, we'll leave the link actually to that person who in the US is changing the game of yoga, because I think that would be very helpful for people. And in the meantime, guys, like, let us know what you think. Like, I know we were a little harsh. We may have sounded a little harsh this episode, but we were just speaking our truth, and
we may have offended people.
Yeah, that's not the intention. We're just kind of, as people of color, we're kind of sick of people appropriating our culture. And yeah, like, let's talk about it. Let's hear what you have to say. Drop a line in the comments, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.